right, my friends. I just pressed the Let's Go Live button, and that means we've got to wait for the tubes to connect themselves. We had a couple of tube problems on the members-only stream this morning, but we think we declogged the clogged tubes, and we're back in business. But we do need to confirm that they are connecting themselves all across the fruited plain, and it looks like they are. That is tremendous news. That means we can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live, the show that spotlights misconduct involving police, prosecutors, and politicians. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney, and today we're talking about trials. We've got Donald Trump Jr., who is in court in New York City, and he was testifying today in the case of Tish James, and she was prosecuting, of course, Trump and the whole entire family, everybody involved in his orbit. But Don Jr. was called in today to testify by the government, and he showed up, and we're going to understand and see exactly what was happening over there, because there was some interesting laughter taking place in the courtroom. Apparently, Don Jr. was there just kind of smiling. I don't know anything about anything there, Tish. And so we'll go through the trial threads. Of course, as we know, no cameras allowed in the courtroom, so we'll see what Adam Klasfeld and what Dan Alexander have to say about it, because they were there reporting on the details. And so we'll go through all of that first to see what happened there in New York. Then we're going to jump over to Colorado, because we have this removal proceeding that took place, and we have been covering this. And yesterday we did not obviously have a show, but we did talk about it. So there'll be a video coming out on day 2 on Colorado. We did that for members only, but that will be coming out. Today is day 3, because we had some interesting things to attend to here. We had a witness who was there talking about the 14th Amendment. And we'll do a little bit of him. He will pay attention to the cross-examination from him by Trump's defense, because that was a lot more interesting than his lecture like he's a college professor or whatever. But then we'll go over to the Secretary of State from Colorado. This woman with the pink hair, perfect for this trial, very appropriate. And she's going to explain to us the forms and the challenges. We've also got Kash Patel, who testified about this Bowser letter. One of the things they're saying in this trial is that it's not that Trump affirmatively did something, or one argument. I mean, they are saying he affirmatively insurrected America, but the other argument is that he failed to act, and that failure to act amounts to insurrection. And so Kash Patel is going to come out and explain to us that this letter was available, that Mayor Muriel Bowser rejected the aid that was proposed by Trump and the Trump administration. And of course, Kash Patel was a part of that decision, and so we'll hear what he had to say about that today in court. But Donald Trump responded to this whole show trial, this clown show, and we'll hear what he had to say along with his attorney, one of his attorneys, Christina Bobb, who was also explaining that the people who really suffer from all of this are us, the people, because if we can't vote for the people who we want to vote for, no matter who the candidate is, whether it's Trump or anybody, that's not part of the democratic process that the Democrats like to lecture us about. And so then today, we'll wrap up with Joe Biden. He got busted with another $40,000 check. Can you believe this one? We just talked last week about a $200,000 check, loan repayments between James Biden and Joe Biden. And apparently another one has been revealed. James Comer from the Oversight Committee is going to walk us through this one a bit. And we're going to follow the money trail from a Chinese company. And you know how that works in China. Basically, the CCP owns the big companies. And so they were funneling money through a joint venture between Hunty and a Hunter entity. Then this was going to James and Sarah Biden. Then they would take some cash out and funnel it over to Joe, the guy who ultimately had the power to get the things done, and the leverage that James and Hunter were able to utilize came from Joe. So we'll talk about the check. You can see this one's 40 grand. This one's signed by Sarah Biden, not James Biden. But we'll also revisit this interview summary, this report from Tony Bobulinski's interview when he sat down with the FBI, because that's where a lot of this started. And it is connected to this check. So again, it's not only the check, but it's also a check plus a witness who says this is what this check was for. Okay, so we'll go through all that as well. Before we hear from the White House, they say that they've got other evidence that there is no nefariousness, that these were just loans. James Biden was just going through hard times with his wife, needed $240,000 for whatever reason. And then they got it, and they just were repaying a debt, I'm sure. So As you can see, my friends, we got a full docket today. We're grateful that you are here and with us. We're going to go through it all bit by bit. If you were a member this morning, we did some extra fun stuff this morning. We were talking about Elon, and it was a wild exchange. He was on Rogan, of course, and Elon was explaining to him that pre-Elon owning X, when it was Twitter, that Republicans or right wing, or basically anybody who was not conforming with the standard state narrative, got suppressed at a rate 10 times that of Democrats and other people on the so-called left, right? So they were just in total control of the entire organization, and it is pretty disgusting. We also did a segment talking about the FBI. Christopher Wray and Homeland Security Mayorkas, the DHS secretary, they were in front of Congress, and there were some good exchanges there. We covered Rand Paul, we covered Ron Johnson, and Senator Kennedy was also there. And they were all kind of grilling these guys, and it was just a lot of fun. So we talked about that on our members-only stream. We do members-only streams in the morning and on Saturdays. And so if you'd like to join us and be a part of not only the extra content, but the extra amazing community, we'd love it if you joined us at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, because there's a lot of stuff that's happening there. We're having a lot of fun, and even more is to come. We also want to invite you to join us on our website, robertgovea.com, where if you go there, you can sign up for the daily newsletter. So you just click this big blue button right here. Boom, a form will pop up. Enter your info, and you'll get these daily reports sent directly to your inbox. So you don't have to finagle around and figure out what's happening. And so we'll put the documents, the PDFs, up on the screen, and you can just go through them at your leisure, including seeing all the red markings, all at robertgovea.com. Hit the highlights over there. So that would be amazing if we saw you there, signing up for our newsletter and joining us at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Great way to support the show and our work here. But now, my friends, without any further ado, it's time. Don Jr. appears in court and testifies, they say with a big smile on his face. We know Tish James has been sitting there in the back of the courtroom, not even at the attorney's table, kind of back where all the other, public sits. And so she's sitting back there, which is strange because she's the state attorney general. And Don Jr. walks right in and just drops a big smile because he was her witness. And he smiles as he says, I don't know anything about accounting. I don't know anything about valuation, but I'm here because you subpoenaed me, Tish. So we're going to go through the trial proceedings, of course, as we know. The people who keep telling us they care about transparency and accountability and openness have locked down this state courtroom. It's not a federal court, so they could easily open it up, I'm sure. But they've chosen not to, so that this whole clown show can happen behind closed doors. But to dig into this, we're going to start by going over to Adam Klasfeld's X account, where he has been live tweeting portions of this trial, and he was there all day today. And here is what he says what happened. And he's going to tell us, good morning. When the civil fraud trial began, connecting us back to the openings, New York Attorney General's counsel, so Tish's other lawyers, not Tish, don't ever think she's doing anything, played this video deposition of Donald Trump. Now, Trump is expected, Jr., let me be clear. Trump Jr. is expected to take the stand later on in the day, and he's going to be live tweeting this. Now, I wanted to just play this to give us a flavor, right? We don't get to see inside the courtroom, and so this is kind of how Don Jr. shows up and testifies. This was on July 28, 2022, so over 2 years ago, over a year ago. And he is kind of doing the same thing here, okay? He's kind of the same shtick. It's kind of, I don't really know anything. I went to Wharton and so on and so forth. And so we'll probably get a same flavor of this when he does testify. We do have a couple witnesses before he comes into the queue, but we'll get through those quickly and then get right to Don Jr. So this is what he sounded like
earned your BS in economics from Wharton. Do you have any familiarity with an acronym GAP, G-A-A-P?
Generally accepted accounting principles, yes.
Okay. How did you become familiar with that acronym?
Probably in Accounting 101 at Wharton.
Okay. What do they teach you about generally accepted accounting principles in Wharton?
Well, I'm not an accountant, but that they are generally accepted.
Principles, probably.
Anything else?
That's pretty much what I remember from Accounting 101. So.
Have you told me everything you know about GAAP?
Basically. I'm sure I could come up with some creative stuff to kill time, but I'd be doing neither of us a favor in terms of educating ourselves.
Okay. Thank you. So, fair to say you've never been you've never been employed in a position that required you to apply GAAP to your work?
No, not that I'm aware of.
All right, so that kind of style, that kind of flavor is what we'll get into. But there were other witnesses that came before the stand, and we jump right into the trial activities, courtesy of Adam Klasfeld. You can follow him, which I would encourage you to do, at Klasfeld Reports on the X. And he's reporting over for The Messenger, does good work. So let's dig into it. He says, trial's in session. Everybody's moseying around on their phone, talking to each other, blah, 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 sports, Diamondbacks, whatever. And then they say, all rise. Oh, quiet, put your phone down. Okay, all right, so please be seated. All right, we're back on the record. The case is Big Tish, Tish James against Donald Trump and everybody who is on his side. We call to the stand. David Orowitz, says Tish's other attorneys who are actually doing all the work here, says this was Trump's senior vice president of acquisitions and development. So David Orowitz on the stand. So they say, all right, Mr. Horowitz, good morning. My name is Eric Herron. I am here with Tish's office. I want to show you an email that you wrote to Alan Weisselberg. And we know Alan Weisselberg was the CFO of the Trump Organization, the chief financial officer, kind of the head guy in charge of all this financial stuff. So he sends this email. He says, looks like you sent this one on December 16, 2011. You remember that? He says, vaguely. Let me show you. Okay. Here's what it says. Can you, let's talk through it. They say, okay, here's what it says. Subject, important. From the witness, an email, the witness on the stand to Alan Weisselberg, the CFO. Important. Need to discuss now is the subject. Oh, it sounds ominous. December 16, 2011, nearing the end of the year. They say, hey, Alan, Ivanka wanted me to change the language in the GAAP section. The GAAP section, GAAP, the same thing that Trump Jr. referenced, Don Jr. She asked that I review with you, Alan. So then the attorney shows the witness another email. He says, you remember that? He says, yeah, that sounds right. I want to show you another email. Now this time, this one came from Deutsche Bank, and it came from Rosemary Verablik to Ivanka Trump, and this one's dated just a couple, well, significantly later, right? A significant difference. So 2011, now we fast forward all the way to 2016, 5 years later. I want to show you another email. The subject of this one is called Doral. So this email, Deutsche Bank's Rosemary to Ivanka. So this guy's not even on this email, apparently. We'll see. He says, now I spoke to the credit team on the $50 million request, and we are thrilled to consider it for you. He says, okay, that looks like an email. Apparently he has seen the email. Maybe he's on the chain. Maybe it came across his desk. Do you recognize it? This witness identifies this email. Ivanka Trump said something. I spoke to the credit team. She gets an email. Somebody says, I spoke to the credit team. You got a $50 million request under consideration. All right, well, we'll see where that goes. Doesn't seem really important, but we'll see. So brief direct examination ends. Okay, that's it. No further questions. Hey, Trump's team, anything from you guys? No questions. No cross-examination at all. And that's easy. Out of the way. Okay, next witness. The government, Tishy, Your Honor, on behalf of Tish's office, New York, we call Michael McCarty. And who's this guy? Oh, great. He's the state's expert witness. All right, well, now we know how state expert witnesses are. Okay. Just the worst. So now he is going to come out here and he expects to tabulate how much the defendants may have to pay in disgorgement. Okay, so this is a damages guy. He's going to come out and say, Trump ripped off the people of New York. However, I don't know, how exactly, we'll see. And he needs to lose hundreds of millions of dollars in order to make this whole. And they say, well, what's your background, Mr. Expert? And we have seen a lot of experts come out and have new opinions about Trump. And they say, well, what's your background, sir? And so McCarty says, the guy on the stand, well, I happen to be pretty dang smart. I'm the chairman and the CEO of the investment bank called M.M. Dillon & Co. Wow, it sounds fancy. So his testimony begins. He says, I'm super qualified, blah, blah, blah. This, level 6, Series 7, Series 37, whatever. I'm a financial blah, blah, blah. And he goes through the whole thing. So then we fast forward through that. Nobody cares. So after all that garbage, now the questioning turns over to McCarty's expert report because he's an expert. So the first category, he says, can you walk us through your report since you're so qualified? He says, I'd love to. Now, what's your category? What's the first category on your report here that you typed up, your book report? Well, let me walk you through it. Tish's lawyer, he says, well, he says, first of all, I go through a series of loans where Trump said that everyone made money on the loans at issue in the case. In other words, Trump is saying there's no victims here because all these loans, everybody made money, we paid the loans on time, blah, blah, blah. But he says, but banks gave Trump favorable terms based on statements of financial conditions that this judge in this case is already determined to be fraudulent, right? And the judge has already done that. We're actually in the damages portion of this, essentially. But the judge has already said there is fraud. But how much fraud, we'll see. So the financial condition currently is that those things were based on fraud. So in other words, the fact that they made money on it doesn't negate the fraud, I think is where this will go. Let's see. The New York Attorney General Counsel, so Tish's lawyer, she says, well, I want to explain this, walk through this concept with you. You've read the orders in this case, haven't you, as an expert? Yeah. And I want to recall your attention to this footnote 21, from the judge's ruling before this trial, where the judge ordered the dissolution of Trump's corporate entities. So I guess he's going to be explaining the footnote for us in this judge's courtroom for whatever reason. So they pull up this document. It says, hey, the subject loans made the banks lots of money, but the fraudulent SFCs cost the banks lots of money. The less collateral for a loan, the riskier it is. And a first principle of loan accounting is that as risk rises, so do interest rates. Thus, accurate SFCs would have allowed the lenders to make even more money than they did. So Trump is kind of taking an opportunity away from them, the opportunity cost, if he would have been honest with them, they would have made more. So that's what he says. And the expert is now referencing that, which came from the judge. Footnote from the judge's ruling. And he says, well, do you understand that? And I guess the judge is probably really happy that he's reading his words back to him in open court. It's like, wow, that's really great writing. I love what I did there. So then they tell us, well, thank you for reading that. And you would agree with that principle since you're an expert? You would agree that if you do it that way, that there is fraud and that's not actually, that actually is a harm. So even though they made money, they actually were the victim of this? And he would say, yes, definitely. We were the victim and it costs us things and whatever, right? He probably had a whole answer. He says, well, what I did here is I actually did some analysis on this. Incredible. He says, I conducted an analysis of risk differentials of what the true interest rates would have been if the statements of financial condition accurately stated Trump's assets. Now, with that preamble, the counsel puts an exhibit on the screen. It says lost interest calculation. They go through a bunch of spreadsheets. Everyone's eyes glaze over in the courtroom. Grand total of lost interest. Oh my gosh, $168 million that Trump should have paid if he would have been arranged at the appropriate interest rate and terms of loans. So this is broken down. He says broken into these different categories on the screen. Doral, Old Post Office, Chicago, 40 Wall Street. So he's gone through and he's with a fine-tooth comb sort of analyzed it and said, they got a 2%. It should have been a 4%. So questioning investigates what went into that. And they're just showing one category. This is one exhibit of the report, and they're just showing one category. So it's like going to be a lot, I think, is where Adam has taken us. He says, now, Chris Keese, Trump's defense attorney, he objects. Your Honor, I object to this testimony. First of all, how can these be considered ill-gotten gains under the law for the purposes of disgorgement absent testimony that the banks wouldn't have otherwise authorized the loans? So in other words, the banks made the judgment that this was favorable to them and the terms were good enough that they made money. So the banks didn't lose any money. So how were those ill-gotten gains, and that's in quotes, right? So that's going to be the term of art that they're using in the court. How could these be ill-gotten gains that authorize disgorgement if the banks were satisfied and actually approved and ultimately profited from the loans? Maybe they didn't profit as much, but they definitely profited, and so it's not ill-gotten, right? It doesn't fall within the term of art. So Engeron says, overruled. Keith, please quiet down again. Sit back down. So he sits down. He says, You can cross-examine him about that if you want to, and you can make your closing arguments there. But we're going to let this testimony continue. Keith jumps back up. He says, Judge, Tish's office, they're asking this witness to substitute his judgment with what was negotiated between the parties. This guy's not a banker, and this guy's not on Trump's team. So he can't make a decision based on what he thinks and speculates because he's not in their seat. And so we can't play this game here. It's all speculative. It doesn't fit within the confines of the law. And we object. Engeron says, overruled. Nice try. With that, the judge says, we're going to break. So we fast forward through the break, and we're back. Now, they say, judge says, all right, look, how much longer is this going to take? We got Trump Jr. coming in here. Don Jr. is going to be here any minute. And the attorney says, well, we're going to be done here pretty soon. We're going to just submit all this, and the judge is just going to buy it, so whatever. He says, we're going to finish our direct in 5 to 10 minutes. And Trump's lawyer says, 5 to 10 minutes. Now, guess what? Our cross-examination is going to be up to 3 hours, says Christopher Keese. Man, he brought a binder bigger than Karine Jean-Pierre's out there, and he's just going to read from it from top to bottom. Now, we'll see. Now, they're all wondering whether this is going to really take 3 hours. The defense attorneys might just be bluffing. Let's see. So direct examination ends. Not much more out of the guy. He's an expert. His spreadsheets are all, available. And then Trump's lawyers come up for cross. Jesus Suarez in the House for Trump's defense. Shout out to Jesus. He's up doing cross-examination of this expert witness. Now, this is the chart that they put up on the screen, and you can see what we're looking at. 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, up to 23. And he's got all the different properties in the various rows. So the Doral property, the OPO property, the Chicago property, and 40 Wall Street. Then he says, okay, yeah, the delta, it's just the actual interest rate, the supposed interest rate, maybe that it should have been, the term of the loan amount, the interest delta. So if the bank would have charged him a higher interest rate, they would have made more money. In 2014, on the Doral property, they would have made $4.7 million more. 2015, $10 million, and so on. And then that totals to 72 mil. OPO, 53 mil. Chicago, 17 mil, and 40 Wall Street, 24 mil, for a total 168 mil that apparently the banks lost because they didn't get it, even though they did profit and they agreed to the terms, and the terms were fine. They got paid. So this guy is substituting his judgment, which is just, basically what they do all the time. Liz Cheney wants to substitute Trump's judgment for her judgment, even though she's not even in office anymore, right? This is just kind of the pattern. So they take a lunch break. And now we're trying to see if there's going to be a strong cross-examination. Witness is back on the stand. Trump's attorney hops back up. Jesus is back at the podium. He says, Your Honor, he says, a Deutsche Bank witness testified that the bank was not misled. Isn't that true, McCarty? That a witness from the bank said that they were not misled. Tish's office, her persecutors, they jump up and say, objection. Misstates the testimony. That's not what that witness said. McCarty, he responds. He said, well, the Deutsche witness testimony, it wouldn't have been material to my analysis, so I don't really have any opinion on that. I did my analysis regardless of their opinion. And so this 3-hour cross-examination is over. One question, done. Your Honor, I have no further questions on this cross-examination. We're done with this guy. No redirect from the government, and that's it. And now, guess who's here? Don Jr. enters the courtroom, and we're still sticking here with Klasfeld. Klasfeld reports on the X, continues. He tells us, Don Jr. walks in, they open the doors, they say, witness entering. He walks in, sits down at the defense table, photographers and videographers taking photographs, recording him. He's flanked by his attorneys. He quips, "I should have worn makeup." Don. Oh. Now, meanwhile, Ivanka Trump and her lawyers are also trying to appeal a subpoena that she has to testify. And so then Tish's lawyers hop on up for their direct examination. Remember, Don Jr. has been called by Tish, not by the defense, and subpoenaed to be there. They didn't want to be here. So the actual person who's doing substantive work on this case, who's not named Letitia, is named Colleen, and her last name is Faherty. And so they go into Trump Jr.'s life and education, right? Where are you from? I'm Donald Trump's kid. That's why my last name is Jr., if you didn't know. And they walk through his education, Wharton Finance, blah, 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 business school. You're a smart guy, right? Yeah, I'm smart. Now, Don Jr., just like we heard previously at the top of this segment, are you familiar with the acronym GAAP, also known as GAP? They have a back and forth. He says, well, it's a complicated thing. I'm not an accountant. I do, politics with my dad now, blah, blah, blah. But I do know what it stands for, okay? And she says, just give me an answer. He says, okay, look, it's generally accepted accounting principles. But he says, beyond that, that's what I have CPAs for, okay? The smart people handle these questions. But that's nice that you have that help, but I need to ask you, Don Jr., did you receive professional training related to GAAP? He says, no, I didn't. Now, you can watch the rest of the testimony over there, of course, from Klasfeld Reports. He says, okay, so no professional training, no. So who's your employer right now? You're employed, aren't you? Yeah. Who's your official employer? He says, well, I believe it's still Trump Payroll Corp. Now, are you familiar with another concept in the law called the Rent Stabilization Law? Don Jr. says, I was then, but I probably forgot most of it now. Well, I want to ask you about a series of emails and conversations and things that you had with Alan Weisselberg, the same CFO, now an ex-CFO from the Trump Organization, who's already convicted of tax fraud. He said, Don Jr., after Donald Trump's, your dad's, inauguration in January 2017, you said that the decision-making authority of your organization, you said, quote, that it shifted to, quote, Alan Weisselberg, myself, and my brother, referring to Eric Trump. Isn't that true? Yeah, I believe I did say that. And I want to ask you about the timing of Alan Weisselberg's departure, because you said that authority just shifted over to Alan. So now I want to see what happened when Alan left. So at what point did Alan Weisselberg not have the capability, the same decision-making authorities that he had previously after the inauguration? He says, oh, well, we removed Alan Weisselberg after his indictment, but I don't know when that happened. So Alan Weisselberg had decision-making power. Tish James indicts him, or I think maybe it was the previous New York AG. Trump has to move him off the board because he's under criminal indictment now. So they say, Don Jr., you don't know when he left? No. Did you ask him to leave? Was it you who did the asking? No, I did not. Did your brother ask him to leave? I'm not sure. Judge Engeron is like, I'm getting tired here, okay? Let's take an afternoon break. He says, as usual, this is his usual joke. He says, as usual, let's take a 10-minute break, which will end in 15 minutes. Oh, Judge, hilarious. What a fun show. What a fun joke of a trial this is. So they take their 15-minute breaks, probably 20 minutes breaks. You know how they work. It says, as we return, Engeron is quizzing Trump Jr. about a question on his mind. So Don Jr. is sitting on the bench, and Judge Engeron looks over to him. He says, hey, Don Jr., while you're here, I got a question for you. He's like, yeah, Judge, what do you want? You're wrecking everything. Thanks. What's up? How can I help you? How does one pronounce the revocable in the Donald J. Trump revocable trust? Is it revocable or revocable? Is it revocable or is it revocable? He says, Judge, I have no idea. Okay, I don't know. Call it whatever the hell you want. I don't know how he said it, but there's laughter in the courtroom. And Faherty, the New York Attorney General lawyer who's not Tish, she says this is riveting. Do you know why? Because they have no personalities at all. That's why. All right. They just don't even, they're like walking monotone robots who just want to prosecute their political enemies. That's it. So even the judge and Don Jr. are kind of laughing it up in the AG's office. Is like, riveting. Can we get back to our scam show trial here, please? You two. Get a room. Unbelievable. So he says, is it revocable or revocable? The Donald J. Trump revocable trust or the revocable trust? Who knows? Pick your poison. Go with it. So Faherty says, I'm going with revocable. All right. So now they're getting into this prelude to questioning about Trump Jr.'s acceptance of his position as a trustee. All right. So now they go into it. Faherty says, I'm going to call it revocable. Trump's revocable trust. And I want to ask you about this trust. There's something happening around the election, Father's inauguration. Says, yeah. And they're also asking about Weisselberg and when he resigned. Don Jr., do you know when he resigned? No. If I told you it was June 2021, would you believe me? Sure. Well, I want to show you a document that President Trump himself signed. Do you remember this document dated January 15, 2021? Maybe. Let me see it. Okay. Yeah, I recollect that. Okay. And here, restored himself. And what does it say there? So you'd agree with me that President Trump restored himself as a trustee on January 15, 2021. Yeah, that looks right. Now, what about Eric Trump? Was he ever a trustee over the trust? I don't think he was, says Don Jr. Questioning shifts. Now we're talking about compensation. Says, well, you're getting paid by Trump core payroll, as you mentioned earlier in this direct examination. But how much compensation do you and your siblings receive when you bought licensing deals? I want to ask you some questions about that. He says, well, the way it would work is we have a name and we do deals and we would get a cut of what they drew in. And so I'd go out and generate deals and license this and license that, Trump. And we do vodka, we do steaks, we do blah, blah. And then the company, TTT Consulting, would be managing it all. And we'd all just take a cut of it, right? We'd all just kind of split in 20% of that deal, 50% of that deal, whatever. So I want to talk about a couple of these deals that you've been working on. Some of these were international deals, weren't they, Don? He says, oh, yeah. We're all over the world, baby. It's Trump International. Who do you think you're talking to? So says, well, what about this one? In Baku, Azerbaijan, Dubai, UAE, Vancouver, Canada. Trump's lawyer stands up. The heck is this, Your Honor? Objection. This is irrelevant. Where is this going? And Engeron's kind of like, yeah, you know, I kind of like Don Jr. now, but he's not ruling. It seems like he kind of agrees. He's like, yeah, Don Jr. liked my joke about revocable. I kind of like this guy. And so Faherty says, hold on, Judge, before you rule, this is where I'm going. All right, I'm asking him about these business deals because some of his international deals on this spreadsheet weren't reflected in the statements. Okay, we're getting to inconsistencies in the statements. And Judge Engeron says, well, I'll allow it. But we'll get back to it tomorrow, says the judge. And Adam Klasfeld will be here tomorrow when Eric Trump is back. And Eric Trump will be apparently back tomorrow for testimony as well. And so a great report from Adam Klasfeld. Now I want to double up on this and take a look at what our friend Dan Alexander also said about this, because he's been live tweeting this as well. And it looks like they might have wrapped up a little bit earlier, but this is a similar take from Dan Alexander. He's writing over for Forbes, and he's also on the X platform. So just to fill in some of the gaps, we have Donald Trump Jr. now on the stand. He walks into the courtroom. Judge Engeron, as the photographers are rushing in, says, I believe we got some photographers that are interested in the situation. Of course, Don says, I should have worn makeup. Takes up the stand, says, I do. He's seated. Questioning starts. Attorney General asks him, hey, Don, are you taking any medication or any drugs of any kind? He says, no. The office is going into his qualifications. Boom, they talk about the gap. Nope, that's what I've got CPAs for. Now, this is where he smiles broadly, my friends. The Attorney General asks several similar questions about accounting certifications and other things. And at one point, Don Jr. says, quote, I have no understanding. And he smiles big for the camera, smiles broadly. Laughter bubbles up in the courtroom. I'm sure Tish didn't like that one. She's sitting there squirming in her seat. So then Donald Trump Jr. starts the day, Trump Jr. starts this day fired up. And of course, we'll get there. Saying that this fake case should be dismissed, and also goes after Judge Engeron, saying, leave my children alone. This was his True Social post. Oh, this is different. He said Trump was posting about this on Truth. This fake case should be dismissed, he posts on Truth. Then he goes after Judge Engeron, saying, leave my children alone, Engeron. You are a disgrace to the legal profession. Trump posts, Judge Engeron is a political hack that ruled against me before my trial even started. My financial statements are great, and there was no fraud. Don Jr. walks into the courtroom, witness entering, and so that was actually earlier, and so we're caught up to speed. And laughter in the courtroom, and so that's, my friend, is what happened on the day. And so we had an interesting session with Don Jr. Now, he'll be back in court tomorrow. And then if they wrap up with him, we'll have some cross-examination from Trump's defense. We'll have Eric Trump then also coming in. And then we've got Ivanka potentially coming up and others. So it is going to be a lot of road ahead. We'll be here continuing to cover it. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for subscribing to this channel and for sharing it with a friend or family member. You know, one of the things I think that they're doing is not allowing cameras in the courtroom so that we can't see how ridiculous this all is. So we're appreciative to Adam Klasfeld, to Dan Alexander, and to the people who are in the courtrooms for reporting on what's happening there. And we appreciate you sharing our work to those who need to see the truth about what's happening to Trump and the Trump family in this case and more. We'll continue to cover, my friends. We'll see you at robertgovea.com, where you can sign up for our daily newsletter, and we'll look forward to seeing you there and on the next one. All right, my friends. Now, we are hopping on an airplane, and we're going over to Colorado. And this is where we're going to start. Donald Trump slams the Colorado show trial, and Kash Patel takes the stand. Now, Kash is going to tell us about this letter that was sent by Mayor Muriel Bowser the day before January 6th, declining the National Guard. And we're going to listen to expert witnesses who testified in Congress saying that the 14th Amendment absolutely applies to Trump, and it's exactly for the type of conduct that Trump is allegedly involved in, which according to them is an insurrection. And then we'll hear from the Secretary of State, who's got some pink hair, who's going to explain how this is all going to work in totality, because they're going to say Trump cannot be literally on the form. He is disqualified from the form, so the Secretary of State can't process it because he's disqualified under the insurrection clause of the 14th Amendment. So, a lot to get to, but we're going to start off with Donald Trump, who is responding to this show trial, obviously and appropriately angry that it is even happening, that a judge in Colorado is trying to deny people in Colorado the right to vote, the right to go in there and participate in what they lecture us all about, democracy, all the time.
A trial is currently taking place to try and illegally remove my name from the ballot. I often say that 2024 will be the most important election in the history of our country. The reason for that and that statement is that our country is being destroyed by people that have no idea what they're doing, or even worse, they may very well have an idea. They may hate our country, and they may want to see it destroyed. But it may also be the last election we ever have. If this election doesn't work, if this election is rigged and stolen, if bad things happen, our country will not survive. If Crooked Joe and the Democrats get away with removing my name from the ballot, then there will never be a free election in America again. We will have become a dictatorship where your president is chosen for you. You will no longer have a vote, or certainly won't have a meaningful vote. And you could say, frankly, that that has already begun. This truly is our final chance to save America, and with the 2024 election now less than 1 year away, this is your chance to take a stand against tyrants that support the one and only movement that can save our country and make America great again. We must win in 2024. If we don't win, we will not have a country. If we do win, we will make America greater than it's ever been before. Thank you.
He's right. We're going to be in big trouble. They were just getting warmed up in 2020. If they're able to recreate and redeploy that infrastructure, it's not going to be looking good. And Trump's lawyer, Christina Bobb, is also chiming in on this, explaining the same, that this is really harming the American people, many of whom want to vote for this man.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And it's really particularly disappointing for the American people that are getting drugged through this emotional trauma of having to deal with this political theater. This case doesn't stand a chance at holding up at the Supreme Court at any level of appeal.
We'll see.
The fact that they would even bring it is really disappointing, and it shows just how far the left is willing to go. And for example, in this country, you're innocent until proven guilty. In order for them to actually try to have some semblance of a chance to remove him from the ballot, he needs to be guilty of an insurrection. Certainly, he has not been tried for that. But more importantly, he has not even been charged with that. There is no charge of insurrection on his January 6th case in Washington, D.C., or any of the other cases. So they're basically declaring him guilty with no trial and saying they're not going to put him on the ballot, if that's actually the way that this judge ends up ruling.
All right, so we're going to listen to this constitutional expert. Now, he was in court all day on day 3, a big portion of it, and just explaining how the 14th Amendment applies to Trump and how all Trump's activities mirror the Civil War, and that the Reconstruction era brought about these new rules to stop insurrection. He was given all this historical context to try to say what happened on January 6th was basically the same thing as the Civil War, which is what these weirdos have been saying for years now. But this, we'll fast forward through all of his lecture and listen to the cross-examination of this from Trump's defense, because this is where we'll get and tease out a little bit more about the mechanics of what he says is how the 14th Amendment works. And so this is the expert witness in Trump trial, Colorado removal.
And is it, just to understand sort of your definition of insurrection, in order to engage in insurrection, in your view, does that require an overt and voluntary act?
Well, an overt or voluntary act would constitute engaging in insurrection. I mean, whether inaction was just not something that was addressed, so history doesn't tell us the answer.
Okay.
Inaction, just to pause on this, the audio is bad. That is the court's audio, and I don't know what they're doing. They're not boosting their mics in the courtroom. They're boosting the questioners' mics, but not the witnesses' mics. It's bizarre. It's been day 3 now. Hello, call me. I'll drive out there. So he is being asked specifically, is it an overt act or a covert act? Does the person who allegedly is involved in insurrection, do they have to do it publicly and noticeably, or can they do an insurrection secretively? And we're going to be mincing words in this vein to really unpack what insurrection means. And the question that he was also asking, which is very, very detailed, can inaction be insurrection? So certainly if you rally a bunch of people up and say, we're going to take over the country and go steal the podium, we're going to take over the country, right? That's an actual organized insurrection. But if you don't organize all of that and you just don't do anything, okay, something is happening and you fail to act, are you a part of that insurrection because you fail to act because something else is happening? We're going to break it down.
Could someone engage in insurrection with an involuntary act?
No.
Okay. Could someone engage in insurrection with a secret act?
Well, no, in the sense that there had to be some public action that was involved, probably, in the sense that there was a public use for public purpose of the insurrection.
Okay.
Yeah, I would tend to think not.
So you'd agree with me that it requires an overt and voluntary act?
Well, an overt and voluntary act would qualify, yes.
Okay. And that someone has to have a specific intent.
Well, that's a question on which the sources don't give us a clear answer. The Attorney General's opinions do refer to intent. On the other hand, the cases don't. The cases, to some degree, could be understood as saying that awareness or knowledge is sufficient. The reason I say that is because
So does the actor who is being charged with insurrection, they're basically determining whether Trump committed an insurrection such that he's disqualified under the 14th Amendment.
let's say you had a sheriff, okay, in a southern state. They were the sheriff before the Civil War. They maintained the same position during the Civil War and after the Civil War. So they're doing the same job the whole time. All that's changed is, they were in the United States, they were under the Confederacy, they're under the United States. It's not clear there if there's any intent involved, but they would have been disqualified because they had served prior to the war, now they're serving during the war, now they're still there after the war. It is clear that they were aware of the insurrection, right? But they were just doing the same job in the same way.
So in other words, they didn't maybe have the specific intent to be an insurrectionist, but by continuing to be a sheriff in the change between the Civil War, they were generally insurrecting, right? Their intent was to work as a sheriff for the Confederacy, and so they had general intent versus specific intent. So applying that to Trump, does Trump have the specific intent to go and insurrect the country? Or is Trump's general intent, which is to, cause a question and do some things, is that enough to sort of lead us to an insurrection? And the fact that he didn't specifically say, I'm going to, go insurrect the country, that's enough to meet the standard, to meet the threshold. And so he's given us his opinion on how we split that.
So it's less clear that would constitute intent.
So let me ask you, because there's a couple branches of Section 3, right? There's the aid and comfort to the enemy's branch, and there's the engage in insurrection or rebellion.
Yes.
Okay. So are you saying it's unclear whether or not that sheriff engaged in insurrection? Or
No, the sheriff was deemed to have engaged in insurrection.
Okay.
My point was you can't say that there's any specific intent involved there.
Okay.
That we know of.
Because he was exercising civil authority under the government of the Confederacy.
In the same way that he did before and afterwards, yes.
Okay.
So as applied to Trump, Trump doesn't
are you
have either, okay? He doesn't have specific intent or general intent at all. He didn't intend to insurrect anything. There was no general intent to do any type of insurrection. He was saying fight like hell, just like everybody was. He was protesting just like everybody was. There was a riot that took place just like it's happened many other times before. We have people insurrecting the Capitol building. We had like 2 of them, in the last month or so. So it's not even, including Jamal Bowman is even insurrecting Congress now. So what are they trying to do here? He's trying to define it, but in my opinion, it's just kind of, Trump doesn't meet either one of those thresholds, no matter how you splice it.
Familiar with Professor Kurt Lash? Well, you are familiar with Professor Kurt Lash. You two have, I think, either written an article together or served on a panel?
We did a podcast together. Yes.
Okay. And he recently wrote an article sort of talking about the historical record of Section 3, correct?
Yes.
And you agree with me that he uncovered some aspects or some items within the historical record that were relatively new to scholarship?
Well, yeah, I think every draft paper is able to do that, yes.
And that's just part of the advancement of scholarship. Each draft paper adds new information.
Right.
Okay. And And have you been in correspondence or spoken with Professor Lash since he wrote his paper?
I have, yes.
Okay. And that's a collegial relationship similar to the one you share with Professors Tillman and Blackman. Would that be fair to say? Okay.
They actually wrap up here pretty soon. So we'll just close it out.
Could you excuse me 1 second, Your Honor?
All right, they
Within
check
sight. Okay. Within sight. So did I correctly hear it saying that you're not here today as an expert on the First Amendment?
Correct.
Okay. So you've not, for purposes of today, maybe at some other point, sort of done an analysis of what incitement means or the historical record behind
No,
that?
there were no First Amendment cases from the Supreme Court until well after Reconstruction. So that's part of the reason why.
Okay. So basically, the historical record you've looked at predates modern First Amendment law?
Correct.
Okay. All right. I have no further questions. Thank you very much.
All right, pretty simple. So that was the expert witness who came in, gave us a little bit of talk about the 14th Amendment. And again, I don't think it applies at all, but we'll see where this judge goes. And the judge, I think, is probably going to rule Trump is disqualified, because that's just why we're here and going through all of this. But then we'll see what the Court of Appeals does, and I think the Supreme Court will ultimately weigh in on it. But I wanted to, before we get to Kash Patel, who testified, and he was refreshing our recollection about this letter that we've talked a lot about, which I think totally smashes the failure to act argument of so-called insurrection. I wanted to share this because this woman is walking us through, with her hair, more than her hair, the format by which they will ultimately remove Trump. And so I know this sounds probably kind of mechanical and maybe a little irrelevant, but I don't think it is, right? She's walking us through the qualifications that are necessary in order to show up on the form. And when the judge says that Trump is a so-called insurrectionist, it will disqualify him from the form. And then this will be the organization that practically removes him. Okay, like these are the people who are going to be taking him off the ballot so that people in Colorado can't vote for him.
Let me ask you a general question about forms. What role does the Secretary of State's office play in creating forms that are used by candidates for ballot access?
The Secretary's office creates all forms that are used for candidates for state and federal office for ballot access.
All right, turning back to the form itself, at the top of the form, do you see where it says office information?
Yes.
And what is the significance of that language?
Well, generally at the top of each of our ballot access forms, we include information about the office being sought, so that the candidate is aware they're completing the correct paperwork, but also for our staff in terms of processing that paperwork and verifying qualifications.
And so underneath that office information, it says year of presidential primary election 2024. You see that?
Yes.
So presumably that year was also changed on this form, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And then it lists the political party for the candidate.
Yes, that's correct.
And then there's a section for qualifications for office.
That's the
You
one.
See that?
Disqualified.
And what are the qualifications listed here?
The qualifications listed here are age of 35 years, resident of the United States for at least 14 years, and natural-born U.S. citizen.
And do you know where those qualifications came from?
From the U.S. Constitution.
And are you aware there are other qualifications for the president that are contained in the U.S. Constitution?
Yes.
I'm going to turn your attention to about halfway down the form. There's some, oh, it might not be blue in yours. It's blue in mine. There's a bolded word that says signature. And underneath that, it says applicant's affirmation. Can you read that affirmation?
I intend to run for the office stated above and solemnly affirm that I meet all qualifications for the office prescribed by law. Furthermore, the information provided on this form is, to the best of my knowledge, true and correct.
Did it say insurrectionist on there anywhere?
And how does a candidate submitting the form confirm that affirmation?
That I'm
A
qualified.
candidate would sign that affirmation and have that signature notarized.
Notarized.
And how does the Secretary of State's office view that affirmation when considering a candidate's qualifications?
Can you tell me what you mean by that?
Well, that affirmation states that the person meets all qualifications for office. So does the Secretary of State's office interpret that to mean more qualifications that are listed on the form?
Well, qualifications listed on the form aren't intended to be an exhaustive list of qualifications.
14th Amendment, they also
Require
consider.
that every candidate affirm that they meet every qualification for office, regardless of whether it's listed on the form.
So is it fair to say that that affirmation is like a catch-all affirmation?
I'd say that's there is.
And do you have similar catch-all affirmations for other non-presidential candidates on their candidate statement of intent?
Every candidate would sign an affirmation that they meet all qualifications for the office they're seeking.
If a candidate checks the boxes on the form under qualifications for office and signs the affirmation, what, if any, additional inquiry does the Secretary of State make?
Do you take his word for it? Do you investigate?
Our office is going to further investigate that affidavit. It's on its face complete and accurate, and so based on that would certify a candidate to office.
They don't look into it.
To the ballot.
No investigation. You don't look if they're insurrectionists? Oh!
And as you testified a moment ago, a Colorado voter could challenge that determination of the Secretary of State, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Are you familiar with the
All right, so how do you change that? If somebody's qualified, they say, I'm qualified, I'm not an insurrectionist, I'm over the age, I reside here, I'm a natural born citizen, blah, blah, blah. Well, if they sign it, do you double check that? Do you call somebody and ask Nancy Pelosi if they're qualified? No, we take it on its face. And so obviously that's what's going to happen. The people can then file a petition to challenge the Secretary of State to get them to remove it. That's what they're doing now. But you can see how the mechanics work. The judge will say, no, I find that there is a disqualification. It is not authorized because he is deemed to have committed an insurrection. And so even though it's not on the form, it's not an exhaustive list on the form, and it's going to disqualify him regardless. So now we're going to get to Kash Patel. Now, we're very familiar with Kash Patel here, done great work on many great issues. And he's going to walk us through this letter from Mayor Muriel Bowser, and really not through the letter itself. So we'll hit the letter first before we hear from him. But this was about Trump asking if there could be National Guard deployed. And this was the response from January 5th from Mayor Bowser from Washington, D.C. So Trump sent a request over. Why don't we deploy some National Guard? Because January 6th is going to happen. There's going to be a lot of people here. Whole country's upset with the rigged election, and we're angry. So we're going to be protesting. So maybe it's a good idea to have some extra personnel there. Don't you think so, Mayor Muriel Bowser? Well, she says no. As the law enforcement agency charged with protecting residents, Muriel Bowser sent this letter back over to the Trump administration, including Chris Miller, Jeffrey Rosen, and Ryan D. McCarthy from the Pentagon. Says, hey, by the way, as the law enforcement agency charged with protecting my residents, the Metro PD is prepared for this week's activities. We've coordinated with Park Police, Capitol Police, and Secret Service, all of whom are regularly available and prepared. This week, we've got additional logistics and support and unarmed members of the D.C. National Guard who are going to work under direction, okay? So this is the mayor saying, we're good, we got it. The D.C. government has not requested personnel from any other federal law enforcement, and so she says very clearly, to avoid confusion, we ask that any request for additional assistance be coordinated using the same process. Now, we're mindful that in 2020, MPD was expected to perform demanding tasks of policing large crowds. unidentified persons cause confusion and so on. And we know that things could have been bad. But to be clear, this is the mayor speaking, to be clear, on January 5th, the District of Columbia is not requesting other federal law enforcement personnel and discourages any additional deployment without immediate notification and consultation with the MPD if such plans are underway. The protection of persons and property is our utmost concern and responsibility. MPD is well trained and prepared to lead law enforcement, coordination, and response to allow for a peaceful demonstration in DC. Now, if you rewind the clock, and we were there on January 6th, we covered, the reaction live basically, and it was a situation where the Democrats were saying that Donald Trump was trying to deploy the National Guard to seize power, right? That was their counter response to this. No, we're not going to let Trump secure anything because then he's just going to seize control. So then they literally not only dissuaded Trump, but they denied him, as Kash Patel is going to explain to us. They made the judgment that they couldn't act in the face of this. So if Bowser says no, then they're done. If Pelosi and the Senate and the House Sergeant at Arms say no, they tell Capitol Hill Chief of Police no, that's the end of the story. So now let's listen to Kash Patel. He's going to end up on that letter, and he's going to walk us up, build us right to it, and let's hear what he says, testifying on behalf of Donald Trump in the Colorado ballot removal trial. This is Kash Patel.
Did part of the process involve reaching out to the local authorities to see if they wanted National Guard involvement? Objection, leading.
Normally, no. Normally the request would come in. But in this instance, the Secretary and I, along with others, felt this matter was important enough that we ordered the Secretary of the Army, after that authorization came in on January 3rd, to begin engagements with Mayor Bowser and the Capitol Police, who we had already been speaking to on other matters that we've discussed here. And we wanted to make them aware that the President authorized 10 to 20,000 National Guard, and we wanted to ask them if they had a request. It was a proactive, preemptive measure. If they needed it, we could begin that big lift that is moving thousands of human beings across the country.
And why is, what is your understanding of why DOD is reluctant to deploy National Guard without a request from local authorities?
My understanding is historically how the department has operated is they do not want to deploy uniformed military officers into and around the United States without the appropriate legal authorities, because one of the bedrock principles of having a civilian in charge of the military is that there is no military sort of hijacking of local governmental offices and powers. And I think that's the way, from my understanding, that the Department of Defense has operated its National Guard with that history in mind.
And if the local authorities explicitly tell DOD that they don't want the National Guard deployed, what would DOD's reaction be?
We, under the advice of our General Counsel's Office, the White House Counsel's Office, along with other agencies and departments who all agreed that absent a request, we would not move the National Guard process forward, because we or our lawyers have made the determination that, based in history and law and precedent, that would not be an appropriate maneuver for the department to undertake unilaterally.
They're not going to interfere. If Bowser said no, they're not going to override her.
So the Secretary of the Army had reached out to local authorities, both in the DC government and at the U.S. Capitol Police. What was the response?
I'll paraphrase, but I think the documents have been made public. Mayor Bowser wrote a letter herself approximately January 4th or 5th, I don't have the exact date, declining further requests for National Guard services outside of the 346 National Guard units already censored. And as far as the Capitol Police go, it's encapsulated in multiple people's timelines, including the chiefs, testimonies from the chiefs of the Capitol Police and the Capitol Police timeline itself, where the Sergeant at Arms declined the Chief of Police's request for National Guard request, and thus those two were our answers as we understood it from the two government authorities as far as January 5th and into January 6th.
Okay, so just pausing on that. So not only do we have the letter from Mayor Muriel Bowser, the mayor of Washington, D.C., that's supposed to have civilian control. We don't want the DOD. We don't want all the Trump federal soldiers coming in and seizing the Capitol. So we leave it with them. Now, that's one avenue. Now, the other was security of the Capitol, which, of course, is under federal jurisdiction. And so they went, the same people, the Trump administration, went to Capitol Hill Chief of Police, Stephen Sund, who wrote a whole book about this, which is outstanding, by the way. I would recommend it. Who explained in clear detail that he made multiple attempts to make requests up the chain of command, Sergeant at Arms, and that went over to Nancy Pelosi, and he was denied multiple times. And if you've listened to anything from him, okay, he's fired up about this, by the way, because he says he's made dozens of calls. He was scrambling around trying to put all this stuff out, but that's not what they wanted. Nancy Pelosi was thrilled. She says, we've been waiting for this. And they all apparently knew that there was going to be a lot of people there. And in my opinion, there were so many CHSs and undercover informants, confidential human sources. We also heard testimony in the Proud Boys trial that the cops were up there on the balconies at the Capitol shooting at a peaceful crowd with paintball guns, essentially, that were projectiles blowing people's cheeks open, right? Before anything ever actually got bad. So they were instigating the crowd. There were undercover people in the crowd. There were no security there. I mean, for one of the most supposedly secure buildings in the whole stinking world. They couldn't figure it out. So now they're trying to blame Trump for that, but it was all a setup. Here's Cash.
From a timeline perspective.
Okay. Could you put up Exhibit 1028, please? And I believe this is another one to which there's been no objection, but I do not believe it's yet been admitted. So I would like to move that this one be admitted if it hasn't yet been.
No objection.
All right, 1028?
1028.
1028 is submitted.
And Mr. Patel, I would ask you if you recognize this letter.
I do.
And what is it?
It's a letter from, excuse me, if you can just scroll down. One second. I just want to confirm that at the bottom.
If you could scroll down.
Okay, thank you. It's the letter I referenced from Mayor Bowser, I believe on January 5th, to the Department of Defense, where she specifically stated we would not be requesting any additional National Guards men and women. And that was her letter to us. That was the declination of a request. And so we were on standby.
There you go. That's it.
Okay.
Nothing else there to it. Now, that I think shatters their failure to act garbage, because it is not a failure to act. They were actually doing their due diligence. In fact, had Mayor Muriel Bowser listened to them, maybe none of this would have happened, but they like that it happened because it has now been used to harangue Trump, and like an albatross around his neck, it's walking itself all the way into 2024. And they can keep brainwashing their side of the country that insurrectionists are about to take over. So that is the latest update on trial day 3. We'll be back tomorrow with day 4, and there will be a lot more to dig into. We know that Trump's defense is just getting started, and so we'll see where they go. Thank you, my friends, for subscribing and joining us as we continue to cover this trial, the rest of the Trump trials, and more going into 2024 and beyond. We'll look forward to seeing you back here on the next one. All right, my friends. And now we're going to see what's going on with the Biden crime family, because this is our final segment on the day. And this one was another reveal. We got another document to dig into. Biden busted again. Another $40,000 loan repayment check got sent his direction. This one came over from Sarah Biden. The last one was from James Biden, his brother, but now this is his sister-in-law who wrote this one. 40 grand for a loan repayment September 3rd, 2017 from Sarah and James Biden Sr. to the order of Joe Biden Jr. $40,000 for that one. Now, James Comer is going to explain the corruption trail and the money trail. And what we're going to do is just look beyond only the check, because a lot of lefties, a lot of Democrats like Raskin are going to say, well, it's just a check. A lot of people have various loans that they make for 40 grand to their bros and sisters-in-law. But we also have this guy, Tony Bobulinski, who went in, spoke to the FBI prior to the 2020 election. They buried his report, censored all of his stuff. But he's an ex-Hunter Biden business partner, and he's confirming that a lot of this money was conducted at the behest of Joe. It was done trading on his name, and he got paid for it. And so Comer revealed exactly what happened. This is from the Oversight Committee. They say that they have published a video and a bank records memo revealing how Joe Biden received $40,000 in laundered Chinese money from the account of his brother James and his sister-in-law Sarah. We'll take a look at the memo. The money trail begins in July 2017 when Hunter demanded payment from his CCP-linked associate. On July 30th, 2017, Hunter sent a message to Raymond Zhao, a CEFC associate, demanding a $10 million capital payment and claimed that his father Joe was sitting in the room. Now, CEFC is a Chinese energy company that is linked to the CCP, and we're going to read quickly the affidavit from Tony Bobulinski. So just to be clear, we're watching money be demanded from Hunter, from the CCP. Then the message was demanding $10 million, and Joe Biden is sitting in the room. And we've heard that message. See, I'm sitting here with my father. If you dare whatever, you're going to hear repercussions coming. On August 8th, then, Northern International Capital, a Chinese company affiliated with the CEFC, sent $5 million to Hudson West, a joint venture that was established by Hunter and Gang Guangdong. Then, another organization sent more money, and we're going to follow the trail in great detail. But we're going to let James Comer explain exactly what is happening in this video before we dive into the report from Bobulinski that connects the dots for us. This is James Comer from the House Oversight Committee, who's going to walk us through the money trail as soon as the spinning circle of death stops here for us. Good to see you, James. Here's what he says, and let's make sure we turn that audio back down. Comer from Oversight explains.
Remember when Joe Biden told the American people that his son didn't make any money in China?
My son has not made money in terms of
the audio on this one's down too.
This thing about, what are you talking about? China.
Well, not only did he lie about his son Hunter making money in China, but it also turns out that $40,000 in laundered China money landed in Joe Biden's bank account in the form of a personal check. And the Oversight Committee has it. Here's how Joe Biden benefited from his family's shady deal with CEFC, a Chinese Communist Party-linked company. It all began with a shakedown in the summer of 2017 when Hunter Biden sent a message to his CEFC associate demanding a $10 million capital payment. As Hunter Biden extorted this associate, Hunter claimed he was sitting with his father and that the Biden network would turn on his associate if he didn't pony up the money. The extortion scheme worked. Days later, $5 million flowed in from a Chinese affiliate of CEFC.
Nice payday.
Over the following 3 weeks, Biden family members made a series of complicated financial transactions to hide the source of the China money.
No, they were loans.
Here's how that happened.
Loans.
First, Northern International Capital, a Chinese company associated with CEFC, wired $5 million to Hudson West 3, a joint venture established by Hunter Biden and a CEFC associate. Then Hudson West 3 sent $400,000 to an entity owned and controlled by Hunter Biden. Next, Hunter Biden wired $150,000 to Lion Hall Group, a company owned by James and Sarah Biden. Sarah Biden then withdrew $50,000 in cash from Lion Hall Group. Later the same day, she deposited it into her and James Biden's personal checking account. A few days later, Sarah Biden cut a check to Joe Biden for $40,000. The memo line of the check said loan repayment. Like the payment to Joe from AmeriCorps funds, it's certainly plausible that this payment where James and Sarah used funds from China was indeed a loan payment to Joe. But even if this $40,000 check was a loan repayment from James Biden, it still shows how Joe benefited from his family cashing in on his name, with money from China, no less.
Right, because Hunter and James have no capability to earn money unless they're trading on the Biden name. It is the grift.
Without his family peddling his name and his son
There you
threatening a CEFC associate with consequences that he said Joe Biden knew about, James wouldn't have had the money to write the $40,000 check to his brother Joe.
Sorry, James.
It's also worth remembering that Biden family efforts to secure millions from this Chinese company began when Joe Biden was still vice president. In taking funds sourced to a CCP-linked company that wanted to advance China's interests, Joe Biden exposed himself to future blackmail and put America's interests behind his own desire for money. The House Oversight Committee will continue to follow the money and hold President Biden accountable for his corruption.
Right on, James. Oversight Committee digging into it, and we're looking forward to seeing what they come up with as this continues on. Now, what's fun about this is when you have this little drip, drip, drip campaign that they're working on, every time that they drop something, they come out and say, no, it's just a loan. It's just a loan. It's just a loan. And then we're going to see probably like, what, 10 different loans? It's like, how many loans does this family need? Are they done or what's happening here? So let's take a look at the actual memo that they dropped out for us. And you can see this was the document that accompanied the video. And you can see it is drafted here. It says, this is from the Committee on Oversight and Accountability, drafted on November 1st. This is the fourth bank record memo, and it's a 12-pager, and we'll see what is inside. They tell us. Committee is releasing the fourth memo to inform us all about the Biden crime family corruption. Subsection A, Part 1. In 2015, James Gilliar, a Biden family associate, told one of his associates that Tony Bobulinski, you remember Tony. Tony is this guy who we heard about in October 2020. He was kind of an October surprise that popped up. And the media buried him, right? We were covering him here, but the New York Post said, you can't talk about, or the New York Post was talking about him, but Twitter said, you can't talk about him. And all of his stuff was being questioned, and he was being deboosted, and he was being basically blackballed out there in the public arena. So that was that person. Now he is back here. They say a Biden family associate, James Gilliar, 2015, informed one of his associates, Bobulinski, about a business deal. He says, hey, Tony, I've got this unnamed U.S. family, and I've got this deal with the Chinese. But guess what? The deal is going to be between the Chinese and one of the most prominent families from the United States, the vice president. And that was in 2015. Said that this is, he says, and them constructed by me, I think will be in great addition to their portfolios. Any entry ticket is small for them, easier and better demographic than Arabs, who are a little anti-U.S. after Trump. Okay, now this was a footnote from a WhatsApp message, and that was from 2015. So, they say Gilliar was referring to the CEFC and the Biden family. The Biden associate was connecting the dots. The committee has provided further information about the CEFC's close ties to the CCP and its founder, Ye Jingming, who, according to James Biden, Hunter Biden portrayed the CEFC to him as the protege of President Xi. Wow. So in 2016, while Joe Biden was vice president, Hunter and James and their associates, including Gilliar and John Rob Walker, reportedly worked on behalf of the Chinese company. We know that there was an FD 302, a summary report drafted by, I believe, the FBI, said that the CEFC had used its relationship with Hunter and James and influence attached to the Biden name to advance their interests. This comes from footnote 5, which is from the actual FD 302 form, the interview of Anthony Tony Bobulinski in the document, which I believe is what I have also pulled up here. So they're referencing Tony Bobulinski's own words in his interview with the FBI. Said Hunter and James did not receive any compensation because Joe was still vice president. There was a concern that any payments to Hunter and James couldn't be made during the time that he was in office. They didn't want anything closely affiliated with the CCP at the time. They wanted to be compensated, but it was for money that was accrued throughout their business dealings. Now, the Bidens and their associates began receiving, this is according to Oversight, began receiving millions of dollars from a Chinese company affiliated with Chairman Ye within 6 weeks of Joe Biden leaving office, right? So now the back pay comes in. Joe Biden's in office. Who knows what he's doing? 6 weeks, Joe Biden leaves. They all get appointed. Joe Biden left the vice presidency January 30th, 2017. January 20th, 2017. On March 1st, 2017, a Chinese company called State Energy then wired $3 million into Rob Walker's LLC company. That payment from Rob then went to Gilliar, Hunter, James, Halley, and their companies like EEIG, Owasco, and others. Now, according to Walker, in an interview, Walker in an FD 1020 in an FD 302 form with John Robinson Walker from 2022, he told the FBI that the $3 million payment represented a thank you from the Chinese company. Isn't that nice? $3 million thank you. What is that for? What did the Chinese get for that? That they paid $3 million in March for it. Early in 2017, Hunter Biden, Walker, Gilliar, they began negotiating with CEFC to form a company for infrastructure projects. They would hold various percentages of the company, but guess what? Guess what? Who would own part of the company? The big guy. 10% for the big guy would go to Joe. Multiple sources have confirmed the big guy is Joe Biden. Now, as an initial matter for funding, CEFC was supposed to send over $10 million to capitalize the project, but they did not transfer the dono. On July 30th, 2017, this is where Hunter sent the text messages to Raymond Zhao. He says, Z, have the director call me. Not James, not Tony, not Jim. Have him call me tonight. Hunter's complaining. I am sitting here with my father, and we would like to understand why the commitment, the $10 million dono, has not been fulfilled. I am very concerned that the chairman has either changed his mind or broken his deal without telling me. And now means tonight. And if I get a call or a text from anyone other than you, Z, or the chairman, Hunter says to this Chinese company, I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me, Daddy, and every person he knows, and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you, Z, will not regret not following my direction. All the time people mistake my kindness for weakness. And all too often I am standing over top of them saying, I warned you. Hunter's a real tough guy when he's on crack. Now, from this moment until whenever he reaches me, and I assume time is running out, get back to me. So Hunter then really wants that $10 million, right? He's got a lot of plans ahead to do with that. So the following day, Hunter then worked to reshape the arrangement. The Chinese are saying, look, we can't do all this stuff. So then they remove Gilliar, they remove Walker, they remove Bobulinski, they kick them all out, and they work solely with James Biden. He says, Z, I reached out to Kay, and he declined my calls, not returning my text. He knows our plan is highly confidential. I just hope he isn't talking to Tony or Jay. If he is, we have a real problem. If I can shape this partnership to the chairman to what it intended, then James and Rob will be well taken care of, but I will not have Tony dictating to me, nor the director, what we can and cannot do. Zhao responded, he said, the CEFC is willing to cooperate with the family, right? We don't want Bobulinski, okay? We don't want Gilliar. We don't want the non-Bidens. We'll work with the Bidens. And why would the Chinese company want to work with the Bidens, right? So that they can have leverage over them when they have all of the information about all of this, because they do. What do they need Tony Bobulinski for? Those people are just loose ends who are going to interfere with all this. The CEFC wants to funnel money directly to the family, obviously. So on August 3rd, Hunter wrote to another CEFC associate, Gongwen Dong. He said, if you think this is about money, Gongwen, it's not. The Bidens are the best I know at doing exactly what the chairman wants from this partnership. Please, let's not quibble over peanuts. You guys got tons of money. You just print some more. So then in August 3rd, same day that he sent that message, Hunter opened up a bank account, Hudson West, one of his LLCs, a joint venture between Hunter and Gongwen. James said that understanding was that Dong was dealing with Chairman Ye and was speaking with Hunter. It was 50% owned by the various people. Now we see here, days after Hunter sends a WhatsApp message, a Chinese company wired millions of dollars to Hudson West, and Joe Biden got $40,000 of it. Soon after they formed the venture, $5 million came flooding in. Here's the wire transfer. That's a nice day to wake up to that. Oh, I wonder what's happening in the news. I wonder if Trump got indicted again. Let me check my financials bank account opening it up. Holy moly, $5 million. Where did it come from? Oh, from the Chinese? Send it back. We don't want it. Not the Bidens, though. They're very happy about it. They're probably have already done the due diligence, the dirty work to earn it. So then on August 8th, this wire was the only money in the Hudson West account. Then on August 8th, Hunter transferred $400,000 of his money from China to his own professional corporation. Isn't that nice? He's like, well, I'll take my cut. The same day Hudson West, the same day they got the $5 million wire, Hunter transferred $400,000 out of it. So that money is Chinese money. So below is an image of the wire transfer. Hunter's like, man, I'm going to get so much cracking hookers tonight. You guys have no idea. No idea. He's on his cell phone texting everybody, $400,000. He'll probably blow through that in like 48 hours. So on August 8th, after receiving the wire, Hunter's balance at the close of business was up to $500,000, $500,000. Nice day of work. Now, on August 8th, the bank account was funded by CEFC affiliates in Owasco, right? So we're looking at different bank accounts now. CEFC Infrastructure wired $100,000 to Owasco. More money's moving around. Owasco got a $400,000 wire. Hunter then made, over the course of a few days, made over $130,000 in payments to Rosemont Seneca Advisors. And that was the Biden RR resource cash. Oh, so Hunter Biden, Hunter Biden has Biden R resource cash account. And the name is the Robert H. Biden account. So yeah, that's like his hooker fund, which is just incredible. And he calls it resource cash. He probably in his QuickBooks, right? He goes in there, quick resource cash. What's that? Oh, hookers, coke dealer, crackhead meth, whatever. He just resource cash for his bookkeeper. How do we categorize these? So one of those was for his Porsche, of course. So among other transfers. Now, during this time period, there was no other deposits. On August 14th, the balance of Owasco was $366,000, which was again funded by the Chinese money. So then that same day, Hunter takes $150,000 of the China money and puts it into another company, the Lion Hall Group. Now, this one is for the James and Sarah Biden family. So you can follow the money all the way down. Comes from China. It comes from China. Use their company, the Lion Hall Group, to conduct various financial transactions, many of which appear personal in nature. During the relevant time period, the address listed on the Lion Hall Group bank records was their residence. So the Lion Hall Group received significant loans from certain individuals, and those concerning transactions, oh yeah, James Comer is leaving a little foreshadowing, my friends. Don't you love it? He says those other concerning transactions, by the way, will be addressed by the committee at a later date. So just hold on to your tuchus over there. Now, on August 14th, 2017, the Lion Hall Group account, they received a wire from Owasco. So that's the James and Sarah Biden account. They got $150,000 of that CCP money. Here's the image of that dono, $150,000 outgoing and incoming. So Owasco outgoing minus 150, Fed wire in, I don't know why oh, there it is. Fed wire in is $150,000, 8/14, same date from the transaction. So then on August 14th, the ledger balance for the Lion Hall Group, that's the Sarah Biden account, $151,000. Then we get about 11 days. We've got between the August 14th and August 25th, the Lion Hall Group made a series of purchases and payments that reduced the account balance to $115,000. They just got paid, baby. They got to go spend some money. Sarah Biden withdrew $50,000 from Lion Hall. Again, this is all Chinese money, right? We're just following it down the chain. And then deposited the money into their personal bank account on the same day. Now, this is just cash. It's not gold bars like Menendez had. He didn't stuff it. This is not being stuffed in Senate jackets, although maybe it is. I don't know what she did with the cash. But she deposited the money into their personal bank account on the same day. Sarah Biden signed a withdrawal ticket for $50,000 from Lion Hall. This is what she said. Oh, hi, I'm here just to make a transaction. What would you like to do? I'd like to take out $50,000. Oh, okay. Okay. Here's the form. Fills it out. Sarah Biden, Lion Hall, 50 grand, 828. Withdraws it, deposits the money back into the personal account with the same bank. Actually had to fill out a form, withdraws it, then it gets transferred. Boom, here it is. An image of the $50,000 that was deposited into the Biden's bank account. 50 grand goes here. Prior to this deposit, the balance of their personal account, oh no, it was only $46, man. They were running on empty. Their card was about to be declined, man. Sarah and James Biden, it's really weird how they've been working their whole lives and been close in Washington and they've got no money. Interesting. Now, the same day as the $50,000 deposit referenced above, Sarah Biden then took out $1,000 from the personal account and the balance dropped to 49 grand. Then the account balance was 48,000 at some point, and then comes the check. Boom. On September 3rd, then Sarah Biden signs a $40,000 check to Joseph R. Biden Jr., 2017, for, quote, a loan repayment. Joe Biden Jr., 40 grand right there. Loan repayment. Now, the check was funded exactly as follows. That dollar, that cash, it came from China to a joint venture with Hunter and Dong. Then it went to Hunter's company. Then it went to James and Sarah. Then she took out 50 grand in cash. Then she cut a check to Joe. $40,000. Now, they might say it's loan repayment or whatever, but that's the chain. That's where the cash came from, and you can follow the documents to get there. The primary issue that Joe and the media, and many in the media have ignored, is that the sources of the money that was used to pay Joe Biden is Chinese money. The tactics the Biden family used to obtain such money from these companies to pay Joe Biden, and why the Bidens engaged in such complicated financial transactions using their accounts to pay Joe Biden. So, and again, on this point, this is why they told us that they have no money, okay? This $46 means that all of the money that ended up in this account went out, right? Like they didn't like take the Chinese money in and say, well, we had $100,000 in our account. We added the Chinese money and we paid Joe from the non-Chinese money. They say prior to this deposit, the balance was literally zero. Okay, $50,000 went into their personal account, and from the personal account that was basically at zero, she then withdrew some money, and from that same account wrote $40,000. So that $40,000 that Joe Biden put into his bank account is from China. Whether he knows it or not, it is. And this is how it got there. So we address the two issues below. We say here, Joe Biden met with these same people. He met with the CEFC officials and Hunter and James Biden business partners. Walker, somebody else who's in the know, was a colleague with the Biden crime family, told the FBI that Joe Biden showed up at a CEFC meeting in D.C. with Hunter at the Four Seasons. Walker also agreed that Hunter orchestrated his father's attendance as it would bolster the chances of making a deal work out. Because Daddy showed up. When asked if he ever heard about Hunter setting up a meeting with the CEFC while Daddy was in office, Walker said, yeah. Hunter met with the CEFC, with Daddy, and Joe got Chinese money in his bank account. Bobulinski met with Joe, James, and Hunter, and at a hotel room where they also discussed the deal. And Bobulinski later raised concerns to James Biden about Joe Biden's involvement in the transactions because they wanted plausible deniability. Or he said, we're okay, we've got plausible deniability. Now here, they tell us that James Biden also misled, or you could use the word lied, to IRS and DOJ investigators about all this. In September, the FBI and the IRS, September 2022, they questioned James Biden about his interactions with Hunter and the CEFC, including about the money flow. Here's an image of everybody who was present during this investigation. We've got James Biden's there, attorney for James, attorney for James, attorney for James, special agent. Oh my gosh, look who that is. Joseph Ziegler. Remember him? He is the whistleblower. And the other person who's here is Leslie Wolf, the same person who has been covering up for the Biden crime family for years. Warned Hunter's lawyers that they were going to go get a search warrant for their storage facility so that they could clear it out. Ziegler is the whistleblower who was ultimately reassigned and testified in front of Congress. So James told investigators that he was not aware of the Hudson West entity, as he was always paid by Hunter through Owasco. But that's not true. He lied to FBI. In reviewing the bank records, the committee can prove that Hudson West directly paid James Biden's Lion Hall group throughout 2018 $76,000. All the different transactions. Now, did the FBI look into it? Do they care? Probably not. Leslie Wolf says, we got bigger fish to fry, like Donald Trump and white supremacists, allegedly in America. Now, below is an image of one of the payments from Hudson West to Lion Hall that James Biden lied about. You see here it says $33,000, domestic wire out, and a federal wire in. Isn't that nice? Lion Hall Group incoming $33,941, outgoing $33,941. Now, Walker described James Biden as, quote, a snake, and added, yeah, I think most of the crap that comes out of Jim's mouth is not exactly completely honest or reliable. So the committee's concerned that James Biden misled federal investigators because he knew that Hudson West was funded by the CEFC. And so in conclusion, Comer tells us that the committee has established that Joe Biden got $40,000 from Chinese companies affiliated with the CCP, and that the payment to the Bidens came days after Hunter Biden threatened the CEFC in a WhatsApp message, and he even used his father as leverage. The committee has established a direct benefit to Joe Biden from his family's suspect international and domestic business deals, and the money comes from China. And in 2020, Joe Biden told the American people that his family did not make money from China. Obviously, that's a lie. Bank records tell us that's a lie. The committee has previously released proof about this, and now we've got proof that Joe received money from China as well. All of it just funneled right to him. He got a nice big fat portion of that $40,000 into his account. And this is the memo from James Comer and the Oversight Committee. Now, Tony Bobulinski, this was the other report where he actually sat down and talked with the FBI and gave them all these goods, but they buried him and his story in the months leading up to the election because they didn't want any of this to come out. Now, back then, we didn't have the bank records to corroborate, right? We just had his testimony. But if you remember, Tony Bobulinski came out and he actually sat down with the FBI at a Washington field office, October 23rd, 2020. Tony Bobulinski meeting with them, special agent in charge, Stephen Passatino. At the start of the interview, have you been exposed to COVID? No, let's go. So they ask him about his presence, right, and all these stuff. We're not going to go through the full thing, but I just wanted to share with you that he is showing that he was working with Gilear. He said that Gilear was working with Bobulinski about upcoming projects, a big investment deal, working with one of America's most prominent families, and that this was all happening right now. And the people who were involved were Joe Biden, Jill Biden, Hunter Biden, Walker's wife, Jill Biden's assistant, and all of these people were involved. Okay, this is a report that was in possession of our government. They had all of this information. They did nothing about it. And they let the media cover up for one of the most corrupt crime families in the entire country. So this is what the White House says in response to this, if you want to buy it for a minute. But he says, Ian Sams, you know him, he says, Comer's lies and conspiracy theories are getting more desperate by the day. It's like, what conspiracy theory was that? We just read through 12 pages of following the bouncing ball. He says perhaps that's why he admitted his probe was going downhill. But he said this has been widely debunked, and literally what they're referencing is Biden's lawyers showing the messenger some documents. All right, they say here, records reviewed by the messenger showed that Joe Biden made several short-term loans to his brother. And so now we're wondering, are they going to backdate and like back create these documents to say, no, it actually was a loan? And even if they do, I'm sure there are other loans, or maybe there's not, maybe there is no other loans, and this is the extent of it, and that is the only loan situation that we see. But even if it was a loan, can't we all also agree that Joe met with the CEFC, as other witnesses say, and the CEFC was ultimately the one who paid him that $40,000 that was a repayment of the loan? So Joe would be a little bit conflicted in having his brother pay him with a foreign adversary's money. Shouldn't he be concerned about that? And if he was, why was he meeting with the CEFC? So they say that, however, the payments made to Joe Biden from his brother, James Biden, the messenger, right, says, it appears to be reimbursements according to bank records reviewed by the messenger. So I don't know if they've got other bank records than the ones that we just saw, but we followed the money literally from account to account, saw the exit, the outgoing, and the incoming. So attorneys for James Biden told the messenger last week that the loan was a repayment. And Comer questioned all of that. New batch of bank records were made. And of course, the committee says that they will be releasing more, and they're going to address more of these issues at a later date. And so we'll be there to cover, my friends. I do hope you join us. I'd love it if you subscribed and hit the like button before you jump into the next video here. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends. Now, that is it for us on the day. And so we are going to wrap it up right there. We covered some good ground. Biden busted with another $40,000 loan repayment. Trump slamming the removal trial taking place in Colorado as Kash Patel takes a stand. And Don Jr. testifying with a big old smile on his face because he doesn't know much about all this CPA and accounting stuff. And we'll see where this trial goes, having some fun with the judge in the courtroom today, talking about revocable or revocable. And so that is it on the day, my friends, but we're not done. It's time to hear from you and to see what you have to say about this. Thank you for those amazing donos and the amazing invites to our membership community, courtesy of our friends on the YouTubes, the Rumbles, of course, the Locals, and the X. And we'll say hello to everybody who is supporting some of the work that we're doing here. Starting off with Knox Bierman in the house. What's up, Knox? Knox is writing over on Locals, says, glad you're alive. I thought the feds finally got you. We had a little technical difficulty this morning. We had the ATEM mini switcher kind of gave out on us. The picture-in-picture functionality died, and so we were kind of offline for like 5 minutes there. We made it back, but it's good to see you, Knox. Thanks for the dono. We're still alive. Feds haven't gotten us yet. That John McGarvey is in the house. What's up, John? Thanks for bringing in 10 new membos for us. Look at this. W Daisy Girl, we got Barbara Jill, we got Mainers here, Rogue Rose, we got Mike H, Scott P, Cecilia M, Scooby Fish, Andy H, Gail G, all coming in courtesy of John McGarvey. John, thank you, my friend, for bringing in the new membos. And hey, new YouTube members, remember, if you're a member, you get extra content in the morning. We do a members only show. Sometimes they're even better than this show. You know? But join us for that. And we also do after parties. So if you're on YouTube, come and join us on the after party. Grab the Telegram link, which you can find on the community tab section on YouTube, and we'll see you over there. We also got Tara Rayner in the house talking about the Trump New York City case. Says, the bank's interest income doesn't benefit New York. How much has Tish cost New York chasing this BS in turn to fund her campaign? Isn't that a campaign violation? Well, I mean, I think she can raise money based on political issues, and so she's well within her right to do that. But the voters would need to be upset with her to say, why are you wasting our resources on this? But apparently the New York voters are thrilled about it. So I don't know that she's violating any campaign laws, but I agree with you that who is the victim really? Like, was the state of New York harmed, or is there tax interest that wasn't paid or something? I mean, the banks, most of this was settled a long time ago. Who's the complainer here other than a partisan political prosecutor with an axe to grind? What's up, Tara? Catherine Rex is here. Says, sorry I'm late, Robs and mods. Sorry I'm late. Well, Catherine, we'll forgive you this time. All right? Because you've been a member for 4 months and we're halfway to a baby and you're starting to feel it a little bit. So you can be late now since you've been a member for 4 months. You've earned it. Thanks for being a member for 4 months. We'll see you tomorrow. Good to see you, Catherine. We got this one from Voice of the People. Says, they played a clip from Tim Pool in the trial. In the insurrection trial in Colorado. Remember Juror 77 from the Carroll case? Does this mean everyone needs to be removed from trial? They're all far-right extremists now. Yes, I do. Yes. So, okay, so Voice is squeezing a lot in here, but this is a fun comment. So remember during the Bergdorf case where E. Jean Carroll says that Trump gave her the old Bergdorf in a dressing room in Bergdorf's? Well, apparently one of the jurors needed to be disqualified because he had listened to Tim Pool. And that juror was a right-wing extremist or something who was going to vote for Trump because of Tim Pool. Tim Pool causes all sorts of chaos in the courtrooms these days. So since they played a Tim Pool clip in the trial, everyone's in there is an extremist. They're all disqualified. In fact, they all should probably be interviewed by the FBI. Good to see you, Voice. Thanks for the nice dono. This one is from the good doctor over on the Locals. Says, inaction on Trump's part cannot be used against him no matter how they are interpreted. Federal office holders have sovereign immunity. He can't be charged in any way for an action or a bad decision. The only remedy is impeachment and removal, which is in the Constitution, which they tried at and they failed. Good to see you, Doc. We got Ian Mack says, hi, Rob. Just as an FYI, there is a WebEx link to the Colorado trial that had much better audio than on C-SPAN. Good Logic used it and changed it to it this afternoon, and it is much improved. That's interesting, Ian Mack. Is that recorded, or would you have to record that? So he's doing it live, right? So he's jacking in on it live. But I'm not sure that it would be recorded, so I'd be able to do that. But I wonder if anybody is streaming that feed independently, or I guess we could listen to Good Logic's feed. But anyways, shout out to Good Logic, by the way. So if you want to go listen to to the Colorado removal trial all day, I believe Good Logic is doing it. So shout out to Good Logic. That's Joe. He's over on YouTube, right next door, and everywhere else that we are. So go check him out. I think he's doing all day. And, shout out to Joe, because there's a lot of painful testimony, at least in those first few days. So Good Logic is covering it, and it sounds like he's got some good audio too. So I'll send you over there. We'll continue to do the recaps here and try to, to kind of hit the highlights here. And so he'll be doing the full show over there. Awesome. Thanks, Ian, for the update. NY says, literally, Biden is allowing illegals to come to this country. He is passively not deporting them. It's literally a foreign army being brought in. Using this tortured logic, Biden's insurrection is far more plausible. Yeah, it's a good point, right? A difference of opinion about how somebody should execute their judgment is not a crime, okay? It's a political question, which is why we have politics. But it's good to see you, Doc. This one, good question, good comment. Drew says, hey, bringing in 5 new members. What's up, Drew? Thanks for bringing in Mama Pillow, Eric V, Lord by Numbers coming in, Hev MC, and Dixie Dogs in the house coming in courtesy of Drew on the tubes. And thanks for being a member, Drew. Much appreciated. We've also got CFB Gaming in the house. And hey, CFB Gaming, I think you dropped a super sticker as well. Not on a live stream, but thank you for that, CFB Gaming. Also bringing in 1 new member, and that person's name is Melanie. Melanie H. Welcome aboard, Melanie, and thank you, CFB, for bringing them on in. We've also got this one from White Sparrow. Says, my dog, Nana, still happy and playful, needs surgery for bone cancer ASAP. says, on fixed income, need donations to an address on your screen. It's a vet clinic, so I'll read it. Needs donations to the Eskridge Vet Clinic, Cannon City, Colorado. $925 upfront, saves her life. Please help, from White Sparrow over on the Rumbles. And so, my friends, if you're a dog lover and you want to support Nana, who needs surgery for bone cancer, you know where to make your dono. Eskridge Vet Clinic, Cannon City, Colorado. On behalf of White Sparrow, our friend over on the Rumbles. We're praying for you, White Sparrow, and your dog Nana, and I hope that she gets exactly what she needs and she's healthy and well and back on her happy, playful self in no time. We've got this one from Catwoman. Says, love how Robert keeps us informed of everything Trump trials. We need this. MSN Blackout, thank you for all that you do. Thank you, Catwoman. Yeah, we're going to just keep going on this stuff, man. We're going to double down on all of it. And there were some interesting orders on the J6 trial and the other trial, but we'll probably cover those tomorrow. I wanted to make sure we got to that Biden stuff today. So tomorrow's probably going to be all 3 Trump trials again, or all 4 of them. Oh my gosh. It's going to be amazing. The reason I do that is because I can't believe they're doing this. You know, it's like insane. It's just really a kind of a wild thing that's happening. And now trying to take them off the ballot too. All right. We'll be here, Catwoman. Thanks for the love and the support. We got Pinochet says, can Biden give pardons or blanket pardons to feds? Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, like, I don't think he could like immunize the FBI to like go break the law, like proactively. But if somebody did something illegal and they got charged, he could pardon them, or he could, yeah, I mean, they would have to do something, right? So it's, I think like Carter, yeah, it's a good question. I don't know what you're asking exactly. Like, could he just pardon all of the FBI for what they did for 2020, for example? Yeah, I think he probably could. It'd be political suicide, but he could. Pinochet had another comment about China paid Joe to do something. We'll skip that one, but I understand. I saw it, Pinochet. And Pinochet says, China paid Joe to embrace global communism and the WEF. That one I will read. And I think that there is maybe some truth to that. You know, maybe there's some policy perspectives that Joe Biden has, given the fact that his family got millions of dollars from China. Might be something like that. B-Man in the house says they're not going to do anything. I want to find out about a January 6th a day that will live in infamy. Because there has been texts and emails, including by Sun's director of intelligence and Nancy Pelosi. So B-Man saying we got to dig into J6. Should be a lot more to unpack here. They're not telling us anything. They keep promising us stuff, but they're not releasing the tapes. I know it. This one came in from Geegum Geegum, says, none of this is going to matter, I imagine, unless Joe Biden is eliminated. He'll pardon everyone, including himself, on the way out. You mean all of like his family and all of that stuff? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think what would that do to the Democratic Party if he did that? I don't know. And look at this little puppy. Oh, yeah. There you go. It's a big step. Good to see you, Geegum. Thanks for sharing that one. See, John. Hey, says Rob, almost time for one baby, one more month. Woo! See, John. Man, you're about to pop. That little thing's probably kicking around, punching out of there. Says 1 month. Thanks for all you do, and I enjoy all the information you give us. Thank you, C. John. And thanks for being a member for 8 months. We really try to deliver for our members. We really try to do members-only streams like 6 days a week if we can get to it. And so thank you for being a member. Really trying to beef up, build up our membership, and deliver, baby. So C. John bringing in 5 new membos. Speaking of that, thank you, C. John. Don't mind me's over on YouTube. We got Catania Mama Italia got a membo. Julius Visi, CJ, and Tom Guthrie all coming in courtesy of C. John in the house. And what's up, Geegum? Giving us the lovely reminder that don't forget our meme smiths here. Everybody pay attention. Don't forget to smash that like button, baby. Wherever it is you're watching it, on YouTube, on Rumble. Thank you for just taking a quick moment to hit that so that more people can see some of the work that we do here. Much appreciated. Thank you, Geegum, for the reminder and the dono. We got this one from Raymond Loera. Says, have you read Malleus Maleficarium and / the Witch's Hammer? I have not, Raymond Loera. Sounds very interesting. It sounds like it might be a little troubling. But I do like forbidden knowledge. I do like things that are off the beaten path. So very curious, but no, I've not even heard of it. So thanks for the plug on that. We got this one from Tree Climber, says, great trial breakdown. Thank you, Tree Climber. We'll be here every day. We're going to continue to do it. I think this is a unique epoch in American history. What's happening right now is, it might be the end of the legal system as we knew it. So we're going to be here to cover it and go hard. Elaine Smith says, you need a refreshment. Must be parched talking for an hour. Well, I have a confession to make, Elaine. When I turn the camera off sometimes, here's what happens behind the scene. Watch this, like off, but let's pretend let's pretend it's on still. I go like this. Is anybody watching? Then I turn the camera back on. So I sneak a sip, but you didn't know that because I'm so sneaky about it. But that's what happens. Usually when the camera's off. And sometimes I try to de-shine my face as well. So we try to make it we try to stay active here because we like to play, baby. We like to go hard. No breaks. We got this one from Rocky Water. What's up, Rocky? Says, mint as always, Rob. Thanks for what you do. Thank you, Rocky. Thanks for always being here, my friend, and for making the lovely dono, supporting us, and for being cheery and just here. It's really awesome. So, awesome. Thank you, Rocky. Thank you to our friends for donating, for supporting the work. Your super chats, your membos really mean a lot, and we're grateful for them. So, let's see what's happening over on the X platform and say hello to our friends over there. You can follow us on X at Rob Govea ESQ, and we also have a Watching the Watchers community now, which is growing because we're posting our content there. Ooh, yeah, look what's up. Okay, so we're almost at 600 membos over at Watching the Watchers on the X. And John McGarvey posted some stuff, posted some links, says Kash Patel absolutely killed. Oh, we're getting some new features coming in. Ooh, okay, so this is cool. So now, like, I'm an admin, so I don't even know what this means, but we're posting our videos horizontally now. And, all right, we're continuing to build out our infrastructure. So we're trying to figure out what we're doing with it, but if you want to come and join us over there, Watching the Watchers on the X platform. I don't think anybody really knows what they're doing with the X communities because it's kind of a new thing. So, let's see. Are we live on X? What the heck is our... There it is. Do we have anybody watching? We do. 12 people. Man, we're in double digits again. This is crazy. Oh my gosh. Look at this. We got a kitty in the house. How funny is this? Okay, so, hey, this is great. All right, so we got 12 viewers over on X. Absolutely incredible. And look at this one. We've got this kitty cat in the house watching the mouse and learning some law. Learning some law. Yeah, we need the cats on our side too. Cats are very, very, very powerful creatures. So we definitely need them to be joining us. And subscribing and also joining our community. Kitty, join us over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. All right, so Kitty's in the house. All right, and so good to see you. Thank you for that one. That came in from Sunshine State of Mind, sharing the kitty in the house. Absolutely love it. All right. Who else do we got over on the X? We got 16 people. Is Elon going to join us? Who else is here? Sheila Mays is here, just stopping by to say hello. Keep up the good work. What's up, Danny McWilliams? Says, would like to see the check that Joe gave to his brother as a loan. Fred says, if you haven't seen Cash's Crossed, you have to. He destroyed their attorney. So I was watching a little bit of it, but I was prepping, and I think it was still going as I was prepping. So I did see some of it, but not all of it. So awesome, Fred. Thanks for that. Says here, Danny says, so by turning down the National Guard Nancy, Pelosi is responsible for J6. And Rob, Jay Adams says, Rob, it's Doral, Do-Ral, not Dural. Says it's Doral, Do-Ral, Doral, not Dural. Stand corrected. Thank you for that one. And George says, hey, it was up to 45 people today. If news was nutrition, Watching the Watchers would be my wheatgrass shot. And I missed my shot yesterday. I know I missed you guys. I had some personal stuff that I was attending to. It has worked out, so things are on the right track. But we're back in business, and so thanks for allowing me the short absence. But it's great to be back, and we're back on track the rest of the week. So I did miss you too, though. I hate missing the show. I love what we do together here. So, my friends, that was it for our friends on the X. Knox Bierman shared a tip from a YouTube video. We'll watch that after the party, in our after party. And we had a couple more come in. Joanna Wind is here. What's up? Welcome aboard as a supporter on the YouTubes. Joanna W. coming aboard. And so, hey, our YouTube members, our new YouTube members, on the channel, navigate over to Community tab, scroll down a little bit. You'll see a Telegram post. Grab that link. We'll see you in the after party. And Catherine Rex says the vote to censure came back. It was a nay. Who was that? Who were they censuring today? Was that one like the Rashida? Was it Rashida or something? Doral. Doral. Is that it? Doral? Oh, all right. Maybe that's it. Doral. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that's it. All right. So got it. All right, got it. Sometimes these pronunciations are hard work for me, but I appreciate your help getting us back on track. Pronunciation checking me in real time. I love it. All right, we've got now our after party, my friends. We are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com to hang out for a little bit longer. We'd love it if you joined us, but if not, no worries. We also would love it if you joined us on our website, robertgovea.com, because that is where you can sign up for our daily newsletter. So all of the segments get delivered to your inbox. And when you sign up for the newsletter, you'll also get invited to the mind map. And for our mind mapping friends, and I know there are many of you out there, you're going to have to update your mind map links. It's November. We've got a new month. And so the archives will have October in the can. And so mind mapping is now into November. So if you want to access any of the mind map stuff, including all the videos and all the documents on here, robertgovea.com, sign up and get access to the new mind map link. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. And we are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party. And we would love to see you there. But if not, well, we'll be back here tomorrow to get into it all again. And we'll need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. See you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.